So, first, great job. So next week, my old teacher from Juilliard is coming, Robert McDonald, to play here next weekend. He said to me once, I mentioned this piece to him, the Ravel Sonatina, and he said, "This is easily one of the hardest pieces that exists for the piano." He's not joking. This guy teaches the most extraordinary competition-winning pianists. He thinks this is literally one of the hardest pieces. Now, the question is why? Why is it so difficult? Do you have an idea? There's a lot going on, right? So the challenge is that Ravel writes for us. Ravel was a genius, and he imagines this instrument as a magic sound box that can do anything. But the problem is that as we're playing, we tend to get in our own way. And one of the aspects that is so challenging about this piece is that Ravel is almost writing this like an etude, a study, something that's technically difficult. And the thing that he's constantly asking you to do is to have a voice in the top that is very prominent, and in the same hand, you're playing those little notes, right? Your hand is having to split into dual personalities, right? And to make matters worse, the moment we worry about playing the top voice prominently, we tend to kind of dig our hand into it, which means we're holding tension on the top of our hand while we're trying to play something very quick below it. That's the recipe for disaster, right? And so I was just thinking as you were playing, what could I offer to you as the most helpful advice as you approach this, especially in the practice room? And I was thinking two very specific things. One is, do you practice slowly? Sometimes. Should be all the time. Literally all the time. Can I sit down for 1 second? I often sneak in here when my teacher, Bob, is practicing late at night. And you know, if he were working on this, I would see him like this. He would just not be playing the piano. He would be working that slowly. Because he would be asking himself this very simple question. When he plays, or when I play, or you play, this main note, the moment you play it, you're done, right? Do you have any more job? Can you do anything to affect the sound of that note? You're just waiting, right? The problem is that we tend to play that top note and we're holding it down as if we can make it sustain more. We can't. The hammer already hit the string, right? The sound is in the pedal though, right? What you can do instead, and I'm going to do this in really slow motion, is that you can play the first note, remind yourself, this pinky finger is now inactive, right? It's suspended from action. You're just leaving your finger down so that it sustains, right? But if this note becomes passive, then suddenly this is not hard to play, right? And then as you're working on the whole piece, everything, that's what's so tricky about the piece, is that the top voice is constantly ringing out, and you have to play the note and immediately just become relaxed, which feels very awkward, right? It's almost counterintuitive to the way we play this piece. We want to actually grip, right? Because we want to feel control. But it's the absolute opposite. You actually have to feel like this releases. So that when you play fast, that's one thing. And the other thing that I want to talk about is how you deal with voicing. I thought Andrew made a great suggestion to you, which is to listen to string quartet, right? Because it's 4 voices, they're all, independent from each other. This is a string quartet texture, right? First violin, second violin, viola, cello. of how we as pianists constantly think of this one thing, which is that our instrument, our key, is vertical. We think down and up. The weird thing is that if you do this, you're just using this finger vertically. What's not being used if I'm just using this finger? Your arm, right? So if we want our arm to activate, we can't go this way. We have to go this way. So instead of pulling down, here's my sound pulling down. I almost lose control of the piano. But if I put the pressure of my arms forward into the key in a kind of a gentle, almost like, you ever try to move a chair or something? And you're just like this? Do that into the piano. And then you can modulate your sound by how fast or how slow you approach the key, right? And so I would just think about that stuff, and the best plan of action for you as you work on a piece like this is to work very slowly and to analyze, right? This is, I think as we work on the piano, this is like a really complicated ballet choreography with our fingers, our wrists, our arm, our shoulders, our back, the chair. All of this is moving together, and it's basically what also Jessica was talking about with violin. It's like there's so much going on, but you cannot let that stuff be blurry in your mind. You have to take the time to analyze and say, oh, here's what happens in this moment. I need to think of, okay, I'm going to support the top of my hand, I'm going to release it and relax as soon as I'm done playing, and I'm going to let the other fingers have their moment, right? Or if you're playing your little string quartet passage, you're going to make sure that you're not pulling down, but you're letting your arms, and especially, I think the best thing that we can do as pianists is to think about our elbow connecting to the tip of our finger. So we have a massive finger rather than a tiny finger, okay? I hope that helps. So great job.